Welcome to this explainer. We're going to unpack the bustling, highly organized cellular economy that builds, well, every living thing around us. Just imagine for a second a single solitary cell trying to do absolutely everything on its own, finding food, processing it, defending itself, trying to grow. It's literally impossible for complex life to work that way. Much like our own human societies, living organisms need a super sophisticated system. We're talking workers, transport chains, defense mechanisms, the whole shebang. So today we're diving straight into exactly how that microscopic economy operates.
Here's our roadmap for today. First, we look at the cellular society. Then compare plants versus animals. After that, we'll meet the specific workforces, the meristematic hustlers, the permanent settlers, xylem and phloem, and finally, protective tissues.
Okay, so let's actually kick things off with a pretty fundamental question. Why do cells choose teamwork over just living in isolation? I mean, technically, a single cell can survive on its own, so why bother forming these massive, complex organisms? Well, think about trying to execute a massive project completely by yourself versus tackling it with a dedicated team. If you do it alone, it takes forever, right? The efficiency is just terrible. Cells realize the exact same thing. To pull off massive tasks like pumping blood, digesting a huge meal, or for a tree, standing tall against a crazy storm, they needed a completely different game plan.
Section 1, the cellular society and the division of labor. The really crucial point here is that tissues exist to create a division of labor. This is what makes complex life so incredibly efficient. Whenever a group of similar cells bands together with a shared structure and one single goal, they form a tissue. Because of this division of labor, one group of cells can literally just focus on movement. Another group focuses entirely on sending messages, and maybe another just transports water. They don't have to stress about anything else. It's exactly like a well-functioning society. Everyone's got a specific job, and together they keep the whole organism running seamlessly.
Section 2, plants versus animals, differing economies.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting because we see a massive contrast in how different organisms live. Stationary plants rely heavily on dead, supportive tissues, while roaming animals absolutely need living, flexible ones. Think about it. Plants aren't going anywhere. They just sit in one place, taking whatever the weather throws at them. So their number one priority is rigid structural support. Because of that, a huge chunk of their tissue is actually made of dead cells. Dead cells don't need any energy to maintain, but they still provide amazing strength. Animals, on the flip side, are constantly moving, hunting, roaming around. We need immense flexibility, so our tissues are mostly living, which means they consume a lot of energy. Oh, and here's another cool difference. Animals grow uniformly up to a certain age and then just stop. Plants, they grow continuously for their entire lives, but only in very specific localized areas.
Section 3, meristematic hustlers, the growth engines.
Let's zoom into the plant economy and meet the foundation of the workforce. These cells are basically like workers in a super fast-paced private job. They move fast, they're constantly dividing, and they don't even have a bank balance or a vacuole yet. Meristematic tissues are the pure growth engines of the plant. They work relentlessly, just dividing over and over again to churn out new cells. Because their sole focus is active, rapid division, they're small, they're packed really tightly together without any gaps, and yeah, they lack large vacuoles simply because they don't have the time or need to store food. They're all about the hustle.
So where are these hustlers actually stationed? Well, they're placed perfectly to make sure the plant grows in every direction it needs to. First, we have apical meristems. These sit right at the very tips of the roots and shoots, pushing the plant taller and deeper into the soil. Then, there are intercalary meristems. These guys are tucked away inside the nodes. Think of a sugarcane stalk or a blade of grass. This is exactly why if a cow comes along and chomps the top off the grass, it can just magically regrow from the middle. Finally, the lateral meristem. These sit on the sides. When a plant needs to increase its girth, or its motapa, these lateral cells divide to make the stem nice and thick and woody.
Section 4. Permanent settlers, the government jobs. Eventually, all these hard-working, fast-dividing cells need to settle down for the long haul. This brings us to differentiation. It's basically that magic moment a cell lands its secure government job. It secures a specialized, lifelong role complete with a big vacuole for storage. You see, after constantly dividing, some of those meristematic cells lose their ability to divide. Instead, they take up a permanent shape, size, and function. They finally get to settle into a comfortable position, build up that large vacuole to store their resources, and just focus on one highly specific task for the rest of the plant's life.
First up in these simple permanent jobs is parenchyma. An easy way to remember this is to think of them as the parents, because they store food and nurture the plant. They're basically simple, living cells whose main gig is packaging and storage. But what's really fascinating is how adaptable they are. If they pack themselves full of chlorophyll to synthesize food, they become what we call chlorenchyma. Or if they're in aquatic plants like a water hyacinth, they actually fill up with large air cavities. These act like tiny life jackets, allowing the plant to float. And in that case, we call them aerenchyma.
Next on the list, we have Calenchima, which you can think of as a flexible collar. Have you ever watched those delicate, curling tendrils of a creeping vine in a storm and wondered, why on earth don't they just snap? Well, the secret is Calenchima. These are living cells that have this specialized thickening right at their corners, using a glue-like substance called pectin. It's brilliant, really, because it gives the plant crucial mechanical support but maintains tremendous flexibility so it can bend in severe winds without breaking.
And finally, sclerenchyma. This tissue is all about providing solid hardness. When a plant needs absolute rigidity, living, flexible cells just aren't going to cut it. So sclerenchyma cells are actually dead, and their walls are heavily reinforced with a tough, cement-like substance called lignin. If you have ever tried to peel the hard, fibrous husk of a coconut with your bare hands, or maybe bitten into the rock-hard shell of a walnut, you've experienced firsthand the extreme mechanical strength of sclerenchyma.
Section 5. Xylem and phloem, the supply chain.
Now let's look at the complex, permanent tissues that build the plant's internal supply chain. This is the plant's plumbing system in a nutshell. Xylem pushes water up, and phloem moves food everywhere. Xylem acts just like a powerful upward pump. It grabs water and minerals from the roots and shoots them straight up to the leaves. Since doing this requires strong structural pipes, the xylem is made mostly of dead, hollowed-out cells. Phloem, on the other hand, is the food delivery network. Once the leaves cook up a fresh batch of glucose, the phloem transports it bidirectionally, meaning it goes up to the growing shoots and down to the roots. Because it takes active management to direct traffic both ways, the phloem network is mostly made up of living cells.
Section 6. Protective tissues, the defense system. Of course, every great economy needs a strong defense system. Think of the epidermis as the plant's literal skin. It's a single, tight layer of living cells acting as frontline armor. To keep the plant from drying out, it secretes a waxy layer. In desert plants, this wax layer, known as the cuticle, is incredibly thick. But a plant still needs to breathe, right? So tucked right into the skin are microscopic pores called stomata. Flanked by these swelling guard cells, these little pores open and close to take in carbon dioxide and release oxygen. They also let out excess water in a cooling process we call transpiration.
But as the plant ages and gets wider, it actually upgrades its armor. When a soft green stem turns into a thick woody tree trunk, that delicate living epidermis is torn apart. To replace it, a lateral meristem generates cork. These are thick, dead cells heavily coated in a chemical called suberin. This upgrades the outer bark into a totally tough, waterproof and gas-proof shield, effectively protecting the tree from injuries, infections, and extreme dehydration for years to come.
Epilogue: Animal tissues.
So, we've thoroughly explored the plant world's economy today, from those hustling meristems all the way to the rigid cork. But I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder until our next explainer. If a stationary tree needs such intricate plumbing and armor, just imagine the level of complex cellular coordination it takes for you to run, think, and feel. We're talking epithelial coverings, pulling muscles, vital connective networks, and lightning-fast nervous tissues. But hey, that is a grand cellular society for another day. Thanks for joining this explainer, and keep that curiosity alive.